My name is Juniper Calloway Whitmore, and I'm 72 years old. For most of my life, I believed that family was everything, that blood was thicker than water, that no matter what happened, your children would always have your back. I was wrong. It was a Saturday in late October when everything changed. The wedding was held at a restored barn venue in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, one of those picturesque places with exposed wooden beams, string lights, and views of rolling farmland that looked like a painting. My granddaughter Riley was marrying a young man named Connor, and I had been looking forward to this day for months. Riley was my only grandchild, the daughter of my daughter Jade. At 26, Riley had grown into a beautiful, kind young woman despite the influence of her mother. She had always been sweet to me, calling me every week, visiting when she could, treating me with the respect and love that my own daughter seemed incapable of showing. I had helped pay for the wedding. Not everything. Connor's parents contributed too, but a substantial amount. $20,000 from my savings. Money I had set aside from when my husband Theodore passed away 8 years ago. Jade had asked if I could help, and of course I said yes. She was my daughter, Riley was my granddaughter, and I wanted them to have a beautiful day. I arrived at the venue at 2 p.m, 3 hours before the ceremony. I wore a dress I had bought specially for the occasion, a knee-length navy blue dress with a matching jacket, modest heels, and the pearl necklace Theodore had given me on our 30th anniversary. I had my hair done at the salon that morning, and I felt elegant, presentable, ready to celebrate. When I walked into the barn, the transformation was stunning. White roses and baby's breath decorated every surface. Round tables with ivory tablecloths filled the space, each with a centerpiece of candles and autumn flowers. A string quartet was setting up in the corner. It was exactly the kind of wedding I had always imagined for Riley. I saw Jade immediately. She was near the bridal suite doorway, talking with the wedding planner, a slim woman in her early 50s with dark hair pulled back so tightly it looked painful. My daughter was wearing a champagne-colored dress that probably cost more than my monthly pension check, with jewelry that sparkled even in the afternoon light. Jade looked good. She always did. At 47, she maintained her figure with expensive gym memberships, and her face with procedures I tried not to think about. She worked in real estate in downtown Philadelphia, sold luxury condos to wealthy buyers, and had built a life that was all about appearances. "Mom," she said when she saw me, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "You made it." Of course I made it. I wouldn't miss Riley's wedding for anything. Well, good. The ceremony starts at 5. You can sit wherever you find space. Something about the way she said it felt off, but I dismissed it. She was probably stressed with all the last-minute details. I spent the next hour helping where I could, adjusting a crooked tablecloth, directing guests who arrived early, chatting with Connor's grandmother, a lovely woman named Patricia, who was 80 and had driven all the way from Ohio for the wedding. The ceremony was beautiful. Riley walked down the aisle on her father's arm. Jade's ex-husband Marcus, a decent man who had left my daughter 10 years ago because he couldn't take her constant criticism anymore. Riley looked radiant in her white gown, and when she and Connor exchanged vows, I cried happy tears. After the ceremony, guests moved to the reception area. That's when I noticed the seating chart by the entrance. I found my name and felt my stomach drop. I wasn't seated with family. I wasn't at Jade's table, which had spaces for her, her boyfriend Warren, Marcus, and several of Jade's friends. I wasn't at the head table with Riley and Connor and the wedding party. I was at a table in the far corner, near the kitchen doors, with people I didn't know, distant cousins of Connor's family, according to the place cards. I stood there staring at the seating chart, feeling heat rise to my cheeks. This had to be a mistake. Surely Jade wouldn't deliberately seat me, the grandmother who had helped pay for this wedding, at a table in the back corner like an afterthought. I walked over to where Jade stood, champagne glass already in hand, laughing with Warren. "Jade, honey, I think there might be a mistake with the seating chart." She turned to me, her smile fading. "What mistake?" "Well, I'm seated at table 12, by the kitchen, with people I don't know. I thought maybe I'd be with you, or at least with other family." Jade's expression hardened in a way I knew too well. "There's no mistake, Mom. That's where you're sitting. But why? I'm Riley's grandmother. I'm your mother. I know who you are," she said, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper so others wouldn't hear. "And I put you where you belong. That table is fine. You'll be comfortable there." "Jade, this doesn't make sense. Why would you—" "Mom, I don't have time for this right now. Just go sit down. Dinner will be served soon." She turned back to Warren, effectively dismissing me. I stood there for a moment, stunned, humiliated, aware that several people nearby had witnessed the exchange even if they couldn't hear it. I walked to table 12 on shaking legs. The other guests at the table were polite, but clearly didn't know why I was there either. One of Connor's second cousins asked if I was from the groom's side, and I had to explain that no, I was the bride's grandmother. The woman looked confused, but didn't press further. From my seat in the corner, I had a perfect view of Jade's table. I watched her laugh, toast, charm everyone around her. I watched Riley and Connor at the head table, so happy, so in love, completely unaware that her grandmother had been relegated to social Siberia at her own wedding. Dinner was served. Prime rib and salmon, beautifully presented. I barely tasted mine. The table conversation flowed around me, but I couldn't focus. All I could think about was the deliberate cruelty of where I had been placed. And then it got worse. After dinner, as servers began clearing plates, I stood up. I needed to use the restroom, needed a moment to compose myself. But as I stood, Jade appeared beside me, her hand on my arm. "Mom, where are you going?" "To the restroom." "Well, after that, could you help in the kitchen? They're short-staffed and need someone to help stack dirty dishes." I stared at her, certain I had misheard. "You want me to work in the kitchen? At Riley's wedding?" "It's not working, it's helping. And honestly, Mom, you're not really doing anything just sitting here. Might as well make yourself useful." "Jade, I'm a guest at this wedding. I'm your mother. I'm not staff." Her face twisted into something ugly. "You know what, Mom? Maybe that's exactly the problem. You think you're so special, so important. But look around. You're at a corner table because that's where you fit. You've never really understood how to act at events like this. You're too simple, too small town. So yes, the kitchen fits you. Go help them. At least that way you'll contribute something beyond your little check." Each word was a knife. Simple. Small town, little check. $20,000 was little to her now. People at nearby tables had started to notice something was happening. I saw Patricia, Connor's grandmother, frowning in our direction. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to tell her exactly what I thought of her cruelty. But this was Riley's wedding. Sweet Riley, who had done nothing wrong. So I swallowed my tears. I swallowed my anger. I swallowed my words. "Fine," I said quietly. "I'll help in the kitchen." Jade smiled, satisfied, and walked away. I made my way to the kitchen area, where confused staff members directed me to a corner where dirty dishes were piling up. For the next hour, while other guests danced and celebrated, I stood in a wedding venue kitchen, scraping plates and stacking dishes, wearing my navy blue dress and Theodore's pearls. At 72 years old, at my own granddaughter's wedding, I was treated like hired help by my own daughter. That was the night everything changed. Chapter 2. The Long Drive Home. I left the wedding without saying goodbye to anyone. Around 8 o'clock, when the dancing was in full swing and everyone was distracted, I slipped out the back entrance of the barn, walked to my car in the parking lot, and drove away. The drive from Lancaster County back to my small house in Reading took about an hour. The whole way, I couldn't stop shaking. My hands trembled on the steering wheel. Tears kept blurring my vision, forcing me to pull over twice just to wipe my eyes and compose myself enough to continue. I kept replaying the evening in my mind. The seating chart, the dismissive conversation, the kitchen, Jade's words echoing in my head. The kitchen fits you. How had I raised a daughter capable of such cruelty? Where had I gone wrong? Theodore and I had tried so hard with Jade. We weren't wealthy. He worked as an electrician. I worked as a school secretary. But we gave her everything we could. Ballet lessons when she wanted them. A car when she turned 16. Help with college tuition. We supported her through her marriage to Marcus. Through the birth of Riley. Through her divorce. And this was what I got in return. Public humiliation at my granddaughter's wedding. When I finally pulled into my driveway, it was past 9. My small house, a 2-bedroom ranch I had bought after Theodore died, sat dark and empty. I had left lights on that morning, excited for the wedding, but the timers had turned them off. I sat in my car for a long time, unable to make myself go inside. Going inside would make it real, would make me face the reality of what had happened, the reality of what my relationship with my daughter had become. My phone buzzed. A text message from Riley. "Grandma, where did you go? I wanted to dance with you. Are you okay?" Sweet Riley. She had noticed. Of course she had. I texted back. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just got tired. It was a beautiful wedding. You looked like a princess. I love you." She responded immediately. "I love you too, Grandma. Thank you for everything you did to help make today special." At least Riley appreciated me. At least someone did. I finally went inside, changed into my nightgown, washed my face, and got into bed. But I couldn't sleep. I lay there in the darkness, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Jade and how our relationship had deteriorated over the years. It hadn't always been this bad. When she was young, we had been close. But as she got older, as she climbed the social ladder, as she made more money and moved in wealthier circles, I became an embarrassment to her. My house was too small. My car was too old. My clothes weren't designer. I didn't know the right people or say the right things. I was from a different world, a simpler world, and Jade had left that world behind and wanted nothing to remind her of where she came from. I thought about Theodore and how he would have handled this. He had been tougher than me, more willing to confront problems head-on. If he had been at that wedding, if he had seen what Jade did, he would have walked right up to her and told her exactly what he thought. Guests be damned. But Theodore wasn't here. It had been 8 years since the heart attack took him from me. 8 years of navigating life alone, of trying to maintain relationships with my only child and grandchild without his steady presence beside me. Around midnight, still unable to sleep, I got up and went to my home office. It was really just the second bedroom with a desk, a filing cabinet, and my computer. I turned on the lamp and pulled out my financial files. I'd been careful with money since Theodore died. His life insurance, plus the sale of our larger house and the purchase of this smaller one, plus my pension from 30 years working for the school district E, meant I was comfortable. Not rich, not even close to Jade's level, but comfortable. And then there was the account, the joint account I shared with Jade. We had opened it 5 years ago, at her suggestion. She said it would make things easier when I eventually needed help managing my finances, that this way she could assist me without needing to go through legal hoops. It made sense at the time. She was my daughter, my only child. Of course I trusted her. The account currently held about $250,000. It was money from Theodore's life insurance that I hadn't needed to spend, plus some investments that had done well, plus my savings. It was meant to be my safety net for the future, for medical expenses, for potential nursing home costs if I ever needed that, for emergencies. Jade knew about this money. She had access to it as the joint account holder, and I knew, though she had never said it directly, that she expected to inherit it when I died. I sat at my desk, looking at the account statements, and made a decision. The return. Chapter 3. Monday morning at the bank. I didn't sleep at all Saturday night. Sunday passed in a haze. I didn't answer when Jade called. Twice. Probably to scold me for leaving the wedding early. I didn't answer Riley either, though her messages were kind, just checking if I was okay. Monday morning, I woke up at 6, got dressed in my best pantsuit, did my hair and makeup with extra care, and was waiting outside First National Bank when they opened at 9. I had banked there for 30 years. They knew me. The branch manager, Kenneth Morrison, had handled Theodore's life insurance payout and had helped me set up my accounts after his death. "Mrs. Whitmore," Kenneth greeted me when I asked to speak with him. "What can I do for you today?" "I need to make some changes to my joint account with my daughter." He pulled up my account on his computer, asked me to verify my identity with my driver's license and social security number, and then looked at me questioningly. "What kind of changes?" "I want to remove my daughter as a joint holder and convert this to an individual account in my name only." Kenneth's expression shifted slightly. He had probably seen this situation before. Family disputes playing out in his office. "I can certainly help you with that. May I ask if there's a specific reason? Sometimes these decisions are made in haste and—" "There's no haste," I interrupted, my voice firm. "I've thought about this carefully. I want my daughter removed from this account immediately. All right. I'll need you to fill out some paperwork, but I should warn you that your daughter, as a joint account holder, will be notified of this change. That's fine. It took about 30 minutes to complete all the forms. As I signed document after document, I thought about what this meant. Jade would lose access to money she had been counting on, money she believed was partially hers, even though legally every penny had come from me. When it was done, Kenneth handed me a new account card and a receipt showing the account was now solely in my name. Is there anything else I can help you with today, Mrs. Whitmore? I hesitated, then said, yes, actually, I'd like to speak with someone about setting up a trust and about updating my will. Kenneth made an appointment for me with the bank's estate planning attorney for later that week. I left the bank feeling lighter than I had since Saturday night. I had taken control. I had protected myself. Now I just had to wait for Jade to find out. Chapter 4. The Fallout. The call came Tuesday afternoon. I was in my garden, pulling weeds from my small flower bed, when my phone rang. Jade's name flashed on the screen. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Hello, Jade. What the hell did you do? Her voice was shaking with rage. I made some changes to my bank account. Is there a problem? Is there a problem? Mom, you removed me from our joint account. I got a notification from the bank this morning. It's my account, Jade. It always was. You were just a joint holder for convenience. That account has $250,000 in it. That's my inheritance. Your inheritance comes after I die. Last time I checked, I'm still very much alive. You can't do this. I need access to that money. Why? For what? There was a pause on the other end of the line. That's none of your business. Actually, since it's my money, it very much is my business. Jade, you make 6 figures a year selling real estate. You live in a luxury condo in Philadelphia. You drive a BMW. Why do you need access to my retirement savings? Because what if something happens to you? What if you have an emergency and I need to help you? Then I'll call you and we'll handle it. But you don't need joint account access for that. Mom, this is ridiculous. You're being vindictive. Am I? Tell me, Jade. Why did you seat me in the corner at Riley's wedding? Silence. And why did you tell me the kitchen fits me? Why did you have me scraping dishes at my own granddaughter's wedding while you paraded around with your friends? That's what this is about. God, Mom, you're so sensitive. It was just a seating arrangement. It was deliberate humiliation. And you know it. Fine. You want the truth? I put you in the corner because I was tired of my friends asking me questions about you. About your little house and your old car and your bargain store clothes. It was easier to just keep you out of the way. Her words, even though I had suspected something like this, still stung. I see. So you were embarrassed by me. Yes, okay? Yes, I was embarrassed. You don't fit into my world, Mom. You never have. And I'm tired of pretending otherwise. Then I guess it's good I removed you from my account. Since I don't fit into your world, you don't need my money either. That's not... Mom, that's not what I meant. Yes, it is. And you know what, Jade? I'm done. I'm done being treated like an inconvenience. I'm done being humiliated. I'm done pretending that you respect me when clearly you don't. Mom, I raised you better than this. Your father and I sacrificed so much to give you opportunities. And this is how you treat me. Like I'm some embarrassing relic from your past that you need to hide. You're being dramatic. No, I'm being honest. For the first time in years, I'm being completely honest with you. You have treated me terribly, Jade, and I won't accept it anymore. So what? You're going to cut me out of your life over a seating arrangement. It's not about the seating arrangement, and you know it. It's about years of disrespect, years of making me feel small, years of treating me like I don't matter. I heard her breathing heavily on the other end of the line. Fine, she said finally. Keep your precious money. I don't need it anyway. Warren and I are doing just fine. I'm sure you are. And don't expect me to come running when you're old and need help. When you're in a nursing home with no one to visit you, remember this conversation. Her words were meant to hurt, and they did, but I kept my voice steady. If that's how you feel, then I guess I know where I stand. I guess you do. She hung up without saying goodbye. I stood in my garden, phone still in my hand, shaking. Part of me wanted to call her back, to apologize, to smooth things over. That was the pattern we had fallen into over the years. Jade would be cruel. I would absorb it, and eventually things would go back to normal until the next incident. but I was tired. So tired of that pattern. I went inside, made myself a cup of tea, and sat at my kitchen table. The same kitchen table where Theodore and I had eaten thousands of meals, where I had helped Jade with her homework when she was young, where Riley had colored pictures when she came to visit as a little girl. My phone buzzed. A text from Riley. "Grandma, Mom just called me screaming about the bank. What happened? Are you okay?" I stared at the message for a long time before responding. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Your mom and I had a disagreement, but it doesn't involve you. I love you very much." "I love you too. Can I come visit this weekend?" "Of course. You're always welcome here." At least I still had Riley. At least I hadn't lost everything. Chapter 5. The Visit. Riley came over that Saturday afternoon, alone. She had texted me that Connor was helping his brother move, so it would be just us. I was relieved. I loved Connor, but I needed to talk to Riley privately about what had happened. She arrived at 2, carrying a bag of fresh bagels from my favorite bakery in town. We sat in my small living room, eating bagels with cream cheese, drinking coffee, making small talk about her new apartment with Connor, about her job teaching 2nd grade, about their honeymoon plans to Ireland next spring. Finally, Riley set down her coffee cup and looked at me seriously. "Grandma, talk to me. What really happened with Mom?" I took a deep breath. "Riley, honey, how much did your mother tell you?" "She said you removed her from your bank account, and that you're being vindictive and punishing her for something minor. Is that all she said? She also said that you left the wedding early without saying goodbye to me, which hurt my feelings until you explained you were just tired. Riley, I need to tell you something, and I need you to hear me out before you respond." Okay, I told her everything. About the seating arrangement in the corner, about the conversation with Jade, about being sent to work in the kitchen, about the words "the kitchen fits you," about feeling humiliated and disrespected at what should have been a joyful celebration. As I talked, I watched Riley's face go through a series of expressions: confusion, disbelief, shock, and finally anger. "Grandma, I had no idea. I swear I didn't know. Mom handled all the seating arrangements. I saw the chart, but I didn't really look at it closely. I just assumed. I assumed you'd be at her table or somewhere close. I know you didn't know, sweetheart. This wasn't your fault. But it was my wedding. I should have noticed. I should have." Her eyes filled with tears. "I can't believe she did that to you. And in the kitchen. She made you work in the kitchen. She did. That's horrible. That's cruel. Grandma, I'm so sorry. You have nothing to apologize for." "Yes, I do. It was my wedding, and my grandmother was treated like hired help, and I didn't even notice because I was too wrapped up in my own happiness. Riley, you were the bride. You were supposed to be wrapped up in your own happiness. That's what wedding days are for." She wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "Is that why you removed her from your bank account?" "Partially, but it's more than just that one night. Riley, it's been building for years. Your mother has been pulling away from me, treating me like an embarrassment, making it clear that I don't meet her standards. Saturday night was just the final straw. What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet. I'm seeing an attorney on Thursday to update my will and set up some trusts. I want to make sure certain things are protected. Are you going to cut Mom out of your will?" I hadn't actually decided that yet, but the question forced me to think about it. I'm considering my options. But Riley, I want you to know that none of this changes how I feel about you. You will always be my granddaughter, and I will always love you. Whatever happens between me and your mother, that stays between us. You're not in the middle of this. But I am in the middle, Grandma. She's my mother, and you're my grandmother, and I love you both. I know, and I would never ask you to choose. But she might. Riley's words hung in the air, heavy with truth. Because yes, Jade might very well force Riley to choose sides. That was exactly the kind of thing she would do. We spent the rest of the afternoon together, talking about easier topics, looking through old photo albums, remembering better times. When Riley left around 5, she hugged me extra tight. "I'm going to talk to Mom," she said. "I'm going to tell her what she did was wrong." "Riley, you don't have to—" "Yes, I do. Because it was wrong. And somebody needs to tell her." After she left, I sat alone in my living room as evening shadows lengthened across the floor. I thought about what Riley had said, about being caught in the middle. I hated that this was affecting her. But I also couldn't continue to accept mistreatment just to keep peace in the family. Sometimes peace isn't peace at all. Sometimes it's just silence in the face of cruelty. 3. Chapter 6. The Attorney's Office. Thursday afternoon. I met with Margaret Chen, the estate planning attorney Kenneth had referred me to. Her office was in a professional building downtown, modern and efficient. Margaret was a woman in her early 60s, with silver hair cut in a sharp bob and intelligent eyes behind stylish glasses. She had the bearing of someone who had seen every kind of family drama play out in her office. "Mrs. Whitmore, Kenneth briefed me on your situation," she said after we settled in her conference room. "You want to make some changes to your estate plan?" "Yes. I have a will that's about 5 years old. I need to update it." "All right. Let's start with what your current will says." I explained that my current will left everything to Jade, with a provision that if Jade predeceased me, everything would go to Riley. It was a simple will, made when Riley was still a teenager, and before my relationship with Jade had completely deteriorated. "And what would you like to change?" I had thought about this carefully since Monday. "I want to create a trust for my granddaughter Riley that she'll receive when I pass, regardless of what happens with my daughter. The trust should be substantial, maybe $100,000. I also want to leave $50,000 directly to Riley, outside of the trust, for her to use immediately." Margaret made notes. "And the remainder of your estate?" "I'm not sure yet. That's where I need advice." "Let me ask you this. Despite the current conflict with your daughter, do you want her to inherit nothing? Or do you want her to receive something, just less than she might have expected?" It was a good question. Was I angry enough to completely disinherit Jade? "I don't want to leave her nothing," I said slowly. "She's still my daughter, but I also don't want to leave her everything, to reward her behavior. A middle ground, then. What if we structured it so that after the provisions for Riley are met, the remainder of your estate, whatever that might be when you pass, is split, with 75% going to Riley and 25% going to Jade?" I thought about it. It seemed fair, in a strange way. Riley would get the bulk of what was left, but Jade wouldn't be completely cut out. "That works." "Good. Now, about the joint account you closed, that money is currently in an individual account in your name only, correct?" "Yes. I recommend we set up the trust for Riley now, while you're alive, and fund it immediately. That way, when you pass, that money goes directly to Riley without going through probate and without your daughter having any claim to it. Can we do that?" "Absolutely. It's called an irrevocable trust. Once you set it up and fund it, the money belongs to the trust, not to you personally. You can name Riley as the beneficiary and set terms for when and how she receives the funds." We spent the next 2 hours going through details, signing documents, setting up the trust. By the time I left Margaret's office, I had created a legal structure that would protect Riley's inheritance from any potential interference by Jade. The trust would give Riley $50,000 immediately upon my death, and then monthly distributions from the remaining trust funds starting when she turned 30. She was 26 now, so it wasn't that far off. I had also updated my will to reflect the new distribution, trust, and direct bequest to Riley. Then the remainder split 75-25 between Riley and Jade. It wasn't about punishing Jade. Not really. It was about recognizing reality. Riley had been kind, respectful, loving. Jade had been cruel. Actions had consequences. As I drove home that evening, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Control over my own life, my own future, my own choices. It felt good. No one. Chapter 7. Thanksgiving. November arrived with cold winds and gray skies. Thanksgiving approached, and for the first time in 50 years, I had no idea where I would spend it. Traditionally, Jade hosted Thanksgiving at her condo in Philadelphia. It was always a production, expensive caterer, perfect table settings, carefully curated guest list. I usually helped with setup and cleanup, essentially working the event while Jade played hostess. I hadn't heard from Jade since our phone call after the bank incident. No calls, no texts, nothing. Riley had told me she spoke with her mother, and that the conversation didn't go well. Apparently, Jade maintained that I was overreacting and that she had done nothing wrong. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, Riley called, "Grandma, what are you doing for Thanksgiving?" "I'm not sure yet." "Why?" "Connor and I want you to come to our apartment. I'm cooking, well, trying to cook. It'll be small, just us and Connor's parents. Nothing fancy." "What about your mother?" "She's having her usual thing at her place. She invited us, but honestly, Grandma, I don't want to go. Not after what she did to you. I told her we're having our own Thanksgiving this year. Riley, I don't want to be the reason you and your mother have problems. You're not the reason. Her behavior is the reason, Grandma. I love my mom, but what she did was wrong. And until she admits that and apologizes to you, I'm keeping some distance. I felt proud of Riley for standing up for what was right, but also sad that it had come to this. Are you sure about this? Very sure. Will you come? I'd love to. Thanksgiving Day was cold, but sunny. I drove to Riley and Connor's apartment in Allentown, bringing homemade pies, pumpkin and apple, Theodore's favorite recipes that I still made every year. Their apartment was tiny compared to Jade's luxury condo, but it was warm and filled with love. Connor's parents, Richard and Susan, were kind people who welcomed me immediately. We spent the day cooking together, laughing at Riley's mishaps with the turkey. She forgot to remove the giblet bag, playing board games, watching football. It was the best Thanksgiving I had had in years. Around 3 p.m, my phone rang. Jade. I almost didn't answer, but Riley gave me an encouraging nod, so I stepped into Riley's bedroom for privacy. Hello, Jade. Where are you? Her voice was tight. I'm at Riley's apartment. She invited me for Thanksgiving. She was supposed to come here. She chose to have her own Thanksgiving this year. Because of you. Because you've turned my daughter against me. I haven't turned anyone against anyone. Riley made her own decision based on your actions. My actions. Mom, you're the one who removed me from your bank account. You're the one who's making this difficult. Jade, do you really not understand why I did that? Do you really not see how you treated me at Riley's wedding? We've been over this. You're blowing everything out of proportion. Am I? Answer me honestly. Why did you seat me in the corner? And why did you tell me to work in the kitchen? Silence. Jade. Because... She sighed heavily. Because Warren's friends were there. Important people. And I didn't want to have to explain about your house or your car or your clothes. It was easier to just keep you out of the way. Finally, she was admitting it. So you were embarrassed by me. Yes, okay, yes. And that justifies humiliating me. I wasn't trying to humiliate you. I was just trying to make things easier. Easier for you, not for me. Mom, I don't understand why you can't just accept that I have a different life now. A different world. You don't fit into it. That's not an insult. It's just reality. Her words, even though I had heard similar sentiments before, still hurt. You're right, I said quietly. I don't fit into your world. I'm just a simple woman from a simple background who worked hard her whole life and tried to be a good mother. I'm not sophisticated or wealthy or connected, but I'm still your mother, Jade, and I deserved better than what you did to me. I know you're my mother. That's why I'm calling. To invite you to next Thanksgiving. To try to fix this. Are you going to apologize? For what? For how you treated me at the wedding. For the seating arrangement. For sending me to the kitchen. For being embarrassed by me. Another long silence. I did what I thought was best at the time. That's not an apology. Mom, I don't know what you want from me. I want you to acknowledge that you hurt me. I want you to admit that what you did was cruel. I want you to genuinely apologize and mean it. I can't apologize for something I don't think was wrong. And there it was. The truth. She didn't think she had done anything wrong. In her mind, putting me in my place was justified because I didn't meet her social standards. Then I don't think we have anything more to say to each other. Mom, enjoy your Thanksgiving, Jade. I hung up and stood in Riley's bedroom, tears streaming down my face. Riley came in a moment later and hugged me without saying anything. Sometimes that's all you need. Someone who understands without requiring explanations. We went back to dinner and I tried to be present, to enjoy the day. And I did, mostly. But there was a sadness underneath everything. The knowledge that my relationship with my daughter might be broken beyond repair. Chapter 8. Winter. December came with snow. Pennsylvania winters were harsh, and I spent most days inside, reading, knitting, watching the birds at my feeder outside the kitchen window. Riley visited weekly, sometimes with Connor, sometimes alone. She never mentioned Jade unless I asked, and I rarely asked. I knew they were still in contact. Riley was not the type to cut off her mother completely, but Riley kept those conversations separate from her time with me. I spent Christmas at Riley and Connor's apartment again. It was quiet but lovely. We exchanged simple gifts, watched old movies, ate too much food. On New Year's Eve, I stayed home alone. I made myself a nice dinner, poured a glass of wine, and watched the ball drop on TV. As midnight approached, I thought about the year that had passed, the wedding, the humiliation, the bank account, the broken relationship with Jade. At 72, I had learned that sometimes love isn't enough, that family doesn't guarantee respect, that you can do everything right and still end up hurt by the people you raised. But I had also learned that I was stronger than I thought, that I could set boundaries and enforce them, that protecting myself wasn't selfish. As the new year began, I made a resolution to focus on the relationships that brought me joy. Riley, my few close friends, the community at my church, and to let go of the ones that brought only pain, even if that meant letting go of my relationship with my daughter. Lamrimer Chapter 9. The Unexpected Letter. In March, a letter arrived, hand-addressed, Jade's handwriting, no return address. I stared at it for a full day before opening it. Part of me wanted to throw it away unopened. Part of me needed to know what it said. Finally, on a rainy afternoon, I made myself a cup of tea and opened the envelope. The letter was 3 pages long, handwritten on expensive stationery. Dear Mom, I've been in therapy since January. Riley suggested it after our Thanksgiving call, and I resisted at first, but Warren encouraged me to try it. My therapist has helped me see things I didn't want to see about myself, about how I treat people, about how I treated you. You were right about the wedding. I was embarrassed by you, and that's my failing, not yours. You deserve better than a daughter who cares more about appearances than about her own mother's dignity. I wish I could say I didn't mean to hurt you, but that would be a lie. Part of me did mean it. Part of me wanted to put you in your place, because seeing you reminded me of things I wanted to forget. My modest childhood, my non-wealthy background, the fact that I'm not actually as high class as I pretend to be. My therapist says I have internalized classism, and that I'm taking out my insecurities on you. She's probably right. I don't expect you to forgive me. I'm not sure I'd forgive me if I were you, but I wanted you to know that I'm working on myself, that I'm trying to be better. I also wanted to tell you that I'm sorry. Genuinely, truly sorry. Not for the reasons you think. Not because I want access to your money, or because I need something from you. Just sorry because you're my mother and I love you and I treated you terribly. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. If you don't, I understand that too. Love, Jade. I read the letter 3 times. Then I set it on my kitchen table and cried. It was the apology I had wanted, the acknowledgement I had needed. But it didn't erase the hurt. It didn't undo the humiliation. It didn't fix everything that was broken. I called Riley that evening. Did you know your mother was going to write me a letter? She mentioned she was thinking about it. Did you get it? Today. What did it say? She apologized. Said she's in therapy. Said she understands what she did wrong. How do you feel about it? I don't know. I'm glad she's in therapy. I'm glad she finally apologized. But Riley, honey, I don't know if an apology is enough. You don't have to decide anything right away, Grandma. Take your time. I put the letter in my desk drawer and tried to continue with my life, but it stayed in my mind, Jade's words, echoing. Nanord Chapter 10. The Coffee Shop. In April, I did something I hadn't planned to do. I called Jade. She answered on the second ring. Mom? Hi, Jade. I got your letter. Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if you had or if you just threw it away. I read it several times. And I appreciate the apology. I appreciate that you're in therapy and working on yourself. But I'm not sure where we go from here. Neither am I, she admitted. My therapist says we should probably do some family counseling together, but I didn't want to suggest that without talking to you first. I'm not ready for that yet. That's okay. I understand. We were both silent for a moment. Could we maybe just meet for coffee? I asked. Somewhere neutral, just to talk? I'd like that. When? This Saturday. There's a coffee shop in Wyomissing, halfway between us. I'll be there. Saturday came too quickly. I arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early. Nervous, unsure what I was going to say. Jade arrived exactly on time, looking different than the last time I'd seen her. Less polished, somehow. She wore jeans and a simple sweater, minimal makeup, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She saw me and gave a small, uncertain smile. We ordered our coffees and sat at a table by the window. "You look different," I said. "I'm trying to care less about appearances. It's harder than you'd think. How's therapy going?" "It's hard, but good. My therapist doesn't let me get away with anything. She calls me out on my bullshit constantly." I was surprised to hear Jade curse. She usually maintained such careful language. That sounds like a good therapist. She is. She's helping me understand why I became so obsessed with status and image. Turns out it's all tied up with feeling not good enough, with trying to prove something to people who don't actually matter. And your relationship with Warren. We're working on it. Turns out some of my issues affect him too. Shocking, right? There was a bitter humor in her voice. We talked for an hour. Not about the wedding or the bank account or the hurt between us, but about smaller things. Her work, my garden, Riley's job, surface conversation, but without the edge of hostility that had been present for so long. As we were getting ready to leave, Jade looked at me seriously. "Mom, I know I can't fix what I did. I know an apology doesn't erase the hurt, but I want you to know that I'm really trying. To be better, to be the daughter you deserved. I appreciate that, Jade. Can we do this again? Meet for coffee?" I thought about it. Part of me wanted to say no, to maintain my distance, to protect myself from potential future hurt. But part of me, the part that remembered holding my baby daughter, that remembered her first words and first steps, and all the years before things went wrong, wanted to try. Maybe. Let's take it slow. Slow is good. I can do slow. We hugged goodbye in the parking lot. It was awkward, uncertain, not like the easy hugs we used to share, but it was something. Chapter 11, The Reality of Forgiveness. Over the next few months, Jade and I met for coffee once a month. We kept conversations light, surface level. She told me about her therapy insights. I told her about Riley's life, about my church activities, about my friends. We didn't talk about the wedding. We didn't talk about the bank account. We didn't talk about all the years of hurt between us. Maybe we should have. Maybe avoiding those topics meant we weren't really healing. But I didn't have the energy for those conversations, and I'm not sure either of us knew how to have them. In July, Riley announced she was pregnant. The joy in her voice when she called me was infectious. I was going to be a great-grandmother. At 73, I would get to meet a new generation. Jade called me the day Riley told her. "Mom, did Riley tell you? About the baby? Yes, I'm so excited." "Me too. I know it's presumptuous, but I was hoping maybe we could plan a baby shower together. For Riley." I hesitated. Planning something together meant spending significant time with Jade, meant coordinating, meant potential conflict. Let me think about it. Okay, just think about it, please. In the end, I agreed. Mostly because I knew Riley would be happy to have both of us involved. Planning the shower was awkward. Jade and I met 3 times to discuss details. She deferred to my suggestions more than she ever had before, clearly trying to not be controlling. But there was a stiffness between us, a carefulness that came from not trusting each other fully anymore. The shower in September was lovely. We held it at a local restaurant, invited Riley's friends and family, played silly games, opened presents. For those few hours, Jade and I functioned as a team, co-hosting, making sure everything ran smoothly. From the outside, we probably looked like a normal mother and daughter, but inside, I felt the distance, the guardedness, the scar tissue that had formed over our relationship. After the shower, as we were cleaning up, Jade touched my arm. "Thank you for doing this with me." "You're welcome. Do you think we'll ever be okay again? Really okay?" I looked at my daughter, at the hope and fear in her eyes, and I answered honestly, "I don't know, Jade. I really don't know." Chapter 12. What Remains. Riley's son was born in early February, a week past his due date. They named him Theodore Marcus. Theodore after my late husband, Marcus after Riley's father. When Riley told me the name, I cried. I met baby Theodore when he was 2 days old. He was perfect, tiny, wrinkled, with a full head of dark hair. I held him in the hospital room while Riley slept, this new life that carried my husband's name, and I felt a mix of joy and sorrow so intense I could barely breathe. Joy for this new beginning, sorrow for all that had been lost. Jade was there too. meeting her first grandchild. She was gentler than I remembered her being with Riley as a baby, softer somehow. Therapy had changed her, at least on the surface. We didn't talk much that day, both focused on Riley and the baby. But as we left the hospital, walking to the parking garage together, Jade stopped me. "Mom, I want you to know something." "What?" "I changed my will. I'm leaving Riley everything. I don't want there to be any fight over money when I'm gone." I didn't know what to say. Was this her way of acknowledging that she didn't deserve what she had expected from me? "That's between you and Riley." "I know. I just wanted you to know that I get it now. That I understand why you did what you did with your bank account. With your will. I would have done the same thing if I were you." "Jade." "No. Let me finish. I destroyed our relationship over money that wasn't even mine. Over status that didn't matter. Over appearances that were meaningless. And I can't undo that. I can apologize. I can go to therapy. I can try to be better. But I can't undo the damage." Tears ran down her face. And for the first time in years, I saw genuine remorse there. Not performative apology, but real understanding of what she had lost. "I miss you," she whispered. "I miss my mom. And I know that's my fault. I know I'm the one who ruined everything. But I miss you." I pulled her into a hug. She sobbed against my shoulder while people walked past us in the parking garage, going about their lives, unaware of this small moment of grief and regret. "I miss you too," I said, because it was true. I missed the daughter I used to have, before money and status and appearances consumed her. But I don't know if we can get back what we had. I know. I'm not asking for that. I'm just asking for something, anything, whatever you can give me. We stood there in that parking garage, holding each other, crying. It wasn't reconciliation. It wasn't healing. It was just two damaged people acknowledging the loss between them. That evening, back in my small house, I sat at my kitchen table, the same table where so many important moments of my life had happened, and I thought about forgiveness. I had forgiven Jade, in a way. I no longer felt the burning anger that had consumed me after the wedding. I no longer lay awake at night replaying her cruelty. The sharp edges of the hurt had dulled. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean erasing. It doesn't mean going back to how things were before. My relationship with Jade would never be what it was. That version of us, the mother and daughter who trusted each other completely, was gone. The wedding night had killed it, and no amount of therapy or apologies could resurrect it. What remained was something different, something more cautious. We could be cordial. We could plan baby showers together. We could visit Riley and Theodore together. We could exist in the same spaces without hostility. But the easy intimacy was gone. The assumption of love was gone. The trust was gone. And maybe that was okay. Maybe some relationships don't survive certain betrayals intact. Maybe the best you can hope for is peaceful coexistence and the occasional moment of genuine connection. I thought about the money, about the trust I had set up for Riley, about the will that left her the majority of my estate. I didn't regret those decisions. They had been about protecting myself, about ensuring that someone who valued me would be taken care of. Jade would inherit something when I died. Not nothing, but not everything. And that felt right. Actions had consequences. Choices mattered. At 73, I had learned lessons I wished I hadn't needed to learn. That you can love someone and still need to protect yourself from them. That family doesn't guarantee respect. That setting boundaries is an act of self-love, not selfishness. I had also learned that healing isn't linear. That forgiveness is complicated. That some scars never fully fade. But most importantly, I had learned that my worth wasn't determined by how others treated me. I was valuable because I existed, because I had lived a good life, because I had loved and worked and tried my best. Jade's cruelty had hurt me deeply, but it hadn't destroyed me. I was still here, still standing, still Juniper Calloway Whitmore, a simple woman from a simple background who deserved respect and dignity. And that knowledge, hard-won and painful as it was, made me stronger than I had ever been. The kitchen table remained. The small house remained. The modest life remained. But now they were mine by choice, not by limitation. Mine with pride, not with shame. And that made all the difference. The end. Final reflections. Some lessons can only be learned through pain. Family love doesn't excuse cruelty. Forgiveness is possible without reconciliation. Protecting yourself isn't betrayal. It's wisdom. And sometimes the hardest truth to accept is that people we love can hurt us in ways that change the relationship forever. Not every story ends with complete healing. Some wounds leave permanent scars. But survival itself is a victory. And learning to value yourself, even when others don't, is perhaps the greatest achievement of all. In the end, dignity matters more than peace. Self-respect matters more than approval. And being true to yourself matters more than maintaining relationships that require you to diminish who you are. These are the hard truths that age teaches us, and they are worth learning, no matter how much they cost. Hasta. Epilogue. 3 years later, the autumn sun filtered through the lace curtains of my living room, casting delicate patterns on the hardwood floor. I sat in my favorite armchair, the one Theodore and I had bought 40 years ago, watching 3-year-old Theodore, Teddy, as we all called him now, play with wooden blocks on the carpet. "Grandma June, look, I made a tower," he announced, his voice filled with the pure pride that only a 3-year-old can muster. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. It's so tall." He beamed at me and immediately started building another one. I marveled at him, at his dark curls, at the determined set of his jaw when he concentrated, at the way he occasionally glanced up to make sure I was still watching. He looked so much like Riley, and sometimes, in certain angles, I could see my Theodore in him too. Riley was in my kitchen, pregnant again, making tea for all of us. She was 7 months along with a girl this time, and she glowed with that particular contentment of a woman comfortable in her own skin and her own life. "Mom's late," Riley called from the kitchen. She texted that she's stuck in traffic on 422. "That's fine. We're not in a hurry." This had become our routine over the past year. Saturday afternoon visits at my house, the 3 generations together, sometimes 4 when Jade came. She didn't come every week, maybe twice a month, but she came, and that was something. The doorbell rang, and Teddy scrambled to his feet. I get it. Wait for Grandma," I said, pushing myself out of my chair with the stiffness that came with being 76 years old. I opened the door to find Jade standing there with a bakery box in her hands. She wore jeans and a simple sweater, her therapy wardrobe, as I'd come to think of it. The designer clothes and jewelry had become less frequent over the past few years, replaced by something more authentic, more real. Hi, Mom. Sorry I'm late. Accident on the highway. It's fine. Come in." Teddy launched himself at her legs. "Nana Jade, did you bring cookies?" "I did. But you have to ask your mama if you can have one." She had learned, over these 3 years, to defer to Riley's parenting decisions, to not overstep, to not assume she knew best. It was a small thing, but it represented a larger shift. We settled in the living room, Riley and I on the couch, Jade in the other armchair, Teddy on the floor with a cookie and his blocks. The conversation flowed easily enough. Riley talked about her 2nd grade class, about the challenges of teaching during standardized testing season. Jade talked about a new listing she had, a historic home in downtown Philadelphia that needed extensive renovation. I mostly listened, interjecting occasionally, watching the dynamics between them. Riley was polite with her mother but not effusive. There was love there, but also wariness. The same wariness I felt. Some betrayals leave permanent marks. After an hour, Riley needed to use the bathroom, pregnancy pressing on her bladder, as she cheerfully announced, and took Teddy with her to wash his hands. Jade and I were left alone in the living room. She looked at me with an expression I had come to recognize over these 3 years, hopeful but hesitant, wanting connection but afraid to push. "How have you been, Mom?" "Really, I'm good. My arthritis has been bothering me a bit, but the doctor says that's normal. Otherwise, I'm fine. Are you still doing your book club?" "Every Tuesday. We're reading historical fiction right now. I'm enjoying it." "And your friend Patricia, is she doing better?" Patricia, Connor's grandmother, had been diagnosed with breast cancer last year. The question showed that Jade had been paying attention, remembering details from previous conversations. She finished her treatment last month. "The prognosis is good. I'm glad." We sat in silence for a moment. It wasn't uncomfortable exactly, but it wasn't the easy silence of people completely at peace with each other either. "Mom, I wanted to tell you something," Jade said suddenly. "Warren and I are getting married." I was surprised. They had been together for over 6 years now, but I hadn't thought marriage was on the table. Congratulations. When? Next month. Small ceremony. Just immediate family and a few close friends. Nothing like Riley's wedding. The reference to Riley's wedding. The wedding where everything had fallen apart, hung in the air between us. I'd like you to be there, Jade continued. Not working in the kitchen, she added with a weak attempt at humor that fell flat. As my mother, at a table of honor, where you should have been the first time. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to refuse, to protect myself from potential hurt. But part of me recognized this for what it was, an olive branch, another attempt to repair what had been broken. I'll be there, I said finally. Relief flooded her face. Thank you. That means a lot to me. Riley came back with Teddy, and the moment passed, but it stayed with me. That evening, after everyone had left, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea and thought about the past 3 years, about the slow, painful process of rebuilding something resembling a relationship with Jade, about the therapy sessions she faithfully attended, about the small changes I had seen in her. Less materialism, less concern with appearances, more genuine connection with Riley and Teddy. Were we healed? No. Would we ever be? Probably not completely. But we were functional. We could be in the same room without hostility. We could plan events together without fighting. We could love each other from a careful distance. It wasn't what I had wanted. When I raised Jade, I had imagined a close mother-daughter relationship that would last our whole lives. I had imagined being best friends, confidants, constant companions in each other's lives. Instead, we were something more complicated. We were two people who loved each other, but didn't fully trust each other, who shared DNA and history but not intimacy, who had learned, painfully, that love alone isn't enough, that respect and kindness and consideration mattered just as much. I thought about the money, about the trust for Riley that would give her financial security when I was gone. I thought about my will, still structured to give Riley the majority and Jade a smaller portion. I had considered changing it back several times over the past 3 years, as Jade had shown genuine change, but I hadn't, and I didn't think I would. Not out of spite, not out of punishment, but because those financial decisions represented something important. My refusal to reward cruelty, my insistence on protecting those who treated me well, my recognition that actions have lasting consequences. Jade had accepted this. She never asked about my will, never pushed for information about my finances. Whether that was growth or resignation, I didn't know. Maybe it didn't matter. The grandfather clock in my hallway chimed 8 times. I rinsed my teacup and prepared for bed, the same routine I had followed for years. As I passed through my small living room, I paused to look at the photographs on the mantel. Theodore, young and handsome in his army uniform. Jade as a baby, all chubby cheeks and bright eyes. Riley's high school graduation. Riley's wedding, a photo from before everything went wrong, when we were all still smiling. Teddy's newborn picture, and a new one, from last month. All of us at the park, 4 generations, looking almost like a normal family. Almost. I picked up that last photograph and studied it closely. Jade and I weren't standing next to each other. There was Riley between us, and Teddy in front. Physical distance maintained even in a family photo. But we were all there. That counted for something. I thought about Jade's upcoming wedding, about sitting at a table of honor this time, about the symbolism of that placement, not just for me, but for Jade, her way of trying to make amends, of publicly honoring me in the way she should have done 3 years ago. Would I go? Yes, I had said I would, and I kept my word. Would it fix everything? No. Some things stay broken no matter how much glue you apply, but maybe that was okay. Maybe accepting that some relationships remain fractured was its own kind of wisdom. Maybe learning to love someone while still maintaining boundaries was actually healthier than the enmeshed relationship we used to have. I had learned so much in these 3 years. About forgiveness being a process, not an event. About how you can forgive someone and still not trust them the way you used to. About how healing doesn't mean returning to the way things were, but rather creating something new from the wreckage. I had learned that I was stronger than I thought, that I could survive my daughter's betrayal and still be standing on the other side, that I could set boundaries and maintain them even when it was hard, that I could choose myself without being selfish. Most importantly, I had learned that my worth wasn't dependent on how others treated me. I was valuable because I was a human being with dignity, with a history, with a life well lived. Jade's cruelty 3 years ago had hurt me deeply, but it hadn't diminished my worth. Only I could do that, by accepting treatment I didn't deserve, and I wouldn't. Never again. As I got into bed that night, I thought about little Teddy, about the new baby coming, about the family that continued despite everything. I thought about Riley, who had managed to maintain relationships with both her mother and me without losing herself in the middle. She was stronger than either of us had been at her age. I thought about the wedding venue in Lancaster County, about that barn where everything had shattered 3 years ago, about how one night, one series of cruel choices, had changed the trajectory of all our lives. If I could go back, would I do anything differently? Would I confront Jade that night instead of leaving quietly? Would I refuse to help in the kitchen? Would I cause a scene? No. I had handled it the way I needed to, with dignity, even in the face of humiliation. I had left quietly, protected myself legally, and set boundaries clearly. That was the right path, even if it was painful. The wedding in Lancaster had been an ending, but it had also been a beginning. The beginning of me choosing myself, of me demanding respect, of me refusing to accept cruelty in the name of family harmony. And that beginning had led to here, to a life where I was respected, where my boundaries were honored, where I maintained relationships on my own terms, rather than accepting whatever scraps were offered. It wasn't a perfect life. There was still sadness, still the ache of a relationship that would never be what it could have been. There was still wariness when Jade came over, still a part of me that waited for the other shoe to drop. But there was also peace. The peace that comes from knowing you've stood up for yourself, the peace that comes from living according to your own values, the peace that comes from surviving something that could have destroyed you and coming out stronger on the other side. As I drifted off to sleep, my last thought was of Theodore, my Theodore, gone 8 years now but still present in my heart. What would he think of all this? Of how I had handled the betrayal, of the boundaries I had set, of the careful relationship I maintained with our daughter. I thought he would be proud that I had stood up for myself, proud that I hadn't let cruelty break me, proud that I had chosen dignity over peace at any cost. I did okay, didn't I? I whispered into the darkness, and somewhere I felt his answer. You did more than okay. You did exactly right. The next morning was Sunday. I went to church, had lunch with Patricia and some other friends, came home to a quiet house. Around 3, my phone rang. Jade. Hi, Mom. I wanted to talk to you about the wedding, about what you might like to wear, about dietary restrictions for the dinner, about whether you need a ride, or if you're comfortable driving to the venue yourself. Practical questions. Thoughtful questions. The questions of someone trying to make sure I was comfortable and included. I can drive myself, I said, and I'll wear something nice. Don't worry about me. I always worry about you, Mom. That's never going to change. There was something in her voice, genuine emotion, genuine care that I hadn't heard in years. I know, I said softly. I worry about you too. After we hung up, I sat with that feeling, the realization that despite everything, despite the hurt and the betrayal and the distance, there was still love between us. Damaged love, complicated love, love that existed alongside wariness and hurt, but love nonetheless. And maybe that was the final lesson, that love doesn't fix everything, that love doesn't excuse cruelty or erase consequences, that love, by itself, isn't enough to sustain a relationship, but it's something, in the ruins of what we used to have, in the careful structure of what we had rebuilt. Love was the foundation, not the whole building, but the foundation. And foundations, even damaged ones, can support new construction. Not the same as what was there before, but something that could stand, something that could last. I looked out my window at the autumn afternoon, at the leaves falling from the trees in my small yard, at the life continuing around me. In a month, I would go to Jade's wedding. I would sit at a table of honor. I would watch my daughter marry the man she loved, and it would be bittersweet. Joy for her, sadness for what we had lost, acceptance of what remained. But I would be there, because family, even broken family, still meant something. Because love, even damaged love, still had value. Because forgiveness, even incomplete forgiveness, was better than bitterness. The kitchen table that had witnessed so much of my life stood solid in the next room. The same table where I had made the decision 3 years ago to protect myself, to set boundaries, to demand respect. That decision had cost me the relationship I once had with my daughter, but it had given me something more valuable: my self-respect, my dignity, my certainty that I deserved better than cruelty, and I would make that choice again, every time. Because some prices are worth paying, some losses are necessary, some endings lead to better beginnings. At 76 years old, with a great-grandson playing with blocks on my floor and a great-granddaughter on the way, with a daughter who was trying, really trying, to be better, with a life that was smaller than I once imagined but richer than I sometimes realized, I had learned the hardest truth of all. Sometimes the people we love most hurt us deepest. Sometimes forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. Sometimes the best we can hope for is peaceful coexistence and moments of genuine connection in between the scar tissue. And sometimes that has to be enough. Because the alternative, accepting ongoing cruelty in exchange for the illusion of closeness, would cost more than any relationship is worth. I had chosen myself. I had chosen dignity. I had chosen boundaries. And I would live with the consequences of that choice for the rest of my life. But I would live with my head held high, knowing I had done the right thing, the hard thing, the necessary thing. And in the end, that knowledge was worth more than any perfect family portrait could ever be. The end. A final truth. Families are complicated. Love is complicated. And sometimes, doing the right thing means accepting that relationships change, that some hurts leave permanent marks, that healing is partial rather than complete. But choosing yourself, your dignity, your worth, your boundaries, is never wrong, even when it costs you, even when it hurts, even when others call you selfish or vindictive or unforgiving, because you deserve respect, you deserve kindness, you deserve to be valued. And if the price of demanding those things is a permanently altered relationship, then that's a price worth paying. This is what age teaches us, that survival is victory, that boundaries are love, that some distances are healthy, and that the truest form of forgiveness isn't returning to what was, but accepting what is, and choosing to move forward anyway, on your own terms, with your dignity intact.